Hello, adventurers. Tonight, we'll be covering the ecology of the owlbear, from its creation to how this monster hunts, kills, and survives. Stick around to the end where we go over the stats from the monster manual. My name is Roy from Dark Alchemy. I am joined by my fellow Dark Alchemist, the Dead Professional Scott,
Hey, everybody.
and our forever DM Evanson.
Hello.
Tonight, we're going to kick off with a original reading from Dragon Magazine, which had the story of the owlbear with some pictures. If you're listening on a podcast, you can follow along. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, you can enjoy the photos of the story. So stand by for that.
Spinewood Forest, one seasoned, one green. Griff, a hardened hunter, walks with the quiet confidence of a man who has survived too many encounters to count. Behind him stumbles Colin, young, curious, and carrying far more questions than experience. They are tracking an owlbear. The signs are unmistakable. Trees clawed deep with vertical gouges, territorial markings left by a creature strong enough to carve into hardwood with a single swipe. The air feels tense, as if the forest itself knows what lies ahead. They find the cave. But Griff does not rush in, he does not gamble. Instead, he sets a trap. He places a jar of honey in the clearing. Colin is confused. Owlbears are supposed to be carnivores, but Griff knows better. They wait, silent, watching. And then it emerges, 8 feet of muscle and fury, feathers blending into fur, a monstrous fusion of owl and bear. It does not scan with its eyes. It turns its entire head, slowly, unnervingly. Then it drops to all fours and approaches the honey. Hooked, Griff gives a soft hoot, just enough to trigger instinct. He fires. The bolt strikes true. The owlbear screams, thrashes, and dies, but the lesson is not over. As Griff begins to skin the creature, the forest answers back. Another scream. A second owlbear bursts from the cave. What follows is chaos. Griff is nearly killed in a single swipe. His crossbow is destroyed. And Colin, bookish, unsure, untested, faces a choice: run or stand. He chooses to stand. Armed with nothing but a walking stick and desperation, Colin distracts the beast. He throws dirt into its face, only to learn too late that owlbears are immune to such tricks. He strikes it, barely phases it. Then, in a moment of reckless brilliance, he charges. He drives his staff into the creature's beak, holding it open, buying time. The owlbear crushes him in its grip, bones cracking, until Griff, bloodied and half-blind, drives his sword into its neck. The beast falls, and in the aftermath, as they stagger into the cave, they find the final truth of the hunt. Eggs, not one monster, but a pair, a nesting site, a future generation. And suddenly, the owlbear is no longer just a beast, it is part of a system.
So the owlbear has been around a long time, since first edition. We have a little old school photo here of the original owlbear from the Monster Manual, this drawing, and he's kind of become a mascot for Dungeons and Dragons in a way. Well, what do we know about the owlbear, Professor? You want to chime in? What do we know about the owlbear? Why would somebody make a half owl, half bear?
Well, why does a wizard make anything? They mess with nature, right? So wizards at some point were merging creatures, and somehow they decided to merge an owl and a bear, keeping lots of the benefits of both. I mean, like I said, it's got the neck of the owl. It's got the nicating membrane on its eyes from an owl, so it can't get blinded. That's why the sand doesn't work in the story. Massive claws of a bear. The beak grown up to be bear-sized from an owl is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
All of that put together makes for a terrifyingly horrific monster.
What are your thoughts, initial thoughts, DM Evanson, on the owlbear as a creature plays might fight against, or why it was created, or really anything?
I mean, I like the owlbear. It's a good monster to throw at your players. It's a good one to hunt or potentially maybe tame. Early on, it's a good challenge. It's got a decent amount of hit points. It does a decent amount of damage. So it's overall it's a classic. And they got so many different versions now, between the Arctic ones for the snowy areas to wood like, and I like that you can use very common tropes of just bears, how you attract them and how to locate them through the scrapings of wood, like a bear would, and sharpening its claws against trees, and footprints, and droppings and such. So it has a little bit of realism put into it too. So yeah, it's a great creature.
So the long dead wizards who created the owl bear, they brought the owl together with the bear, and we find that the owls are mostly carnivores. They would usually hunt mice and stuff. In this case, the owl bear retains his carnivorous cravings for meat, but there's enough bear in it that they can be attracted by honey, which is why in the original story they said honey, that that monster would still try to get to the honey.
Yep.
How would you go about, like, maybe tracking or fighting a owl bear if it was kind of raiding your village? Any other ideas or tricks you might do?
Well, tracking, it's probably not very hard. It leaves massive tracks. It's not considered, a delicate creature. It probably knocks things down out of its way. So it's probably pretty easy to track. How to fight one? A whole bunch of guys with spears, maybe? Just like you would fight wild boars or something like that. Boar spears that'll keep it away from you.
Yeah.
Archers,
Archers.
4 guys hold it, whole bunch of guys shoot it with arrows.
Mhm.
If you don't have adventurers, this is not going to be a fun thing to fight.
Yeah, it's definitely something you don't want to go into their cave or den to attack them in the dark, especially if you don't have the ability to see well.
Now, they did say, in some of the background information, if you read through the different stories, whether it's in a Dragon magazine or if it's in a monster manual or if it's in a homebrew, that they have kind of the abilities of both. So the owl, they have the perception, like the professor said, they have like this kind of thing that goes over to protect their eyes. They have the perception and acuity of an owl, that they're able to see far. They have excellent hearing, but then you also have the massive weight, large claws, a bite attack, and a bear hug attack.
Yep.
Do you think that these things are inherently evil because the wizards create them, or they actually kind of just became a part of nature? Because we were discussing earlier that normally these creatures would not reproduce. A wizard would make an amalgamation, and combine something together, but then it would be a one-off and it would just kind of die. But for some reason, these got into the wild and now they reproduce like a normal animal and they're everywhere.
But they're a mammal that lays eggs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're a mammal. Yeah. So it's kind of, they're a mammal, but they have the avian, the bird aspect, the owl aspect.
Yeah, and they
so
lay
they
eggs.
lay eggs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're known to be grumpy, right? But are they evil?
No. Absolutely no.
And there's this has always been, I think, a point of dispute in D&D is, should an owlbear be a beast or a monstrosity?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, wizards created them, eons ago or however long ago, but they breed naturally and they're part of the habitat and such. So should they be a beast?
Yeah, I think
right?
so.
I mean, everyone who plays a druid wants them to be a beast, obviously, because then they can shape change into them.
Yeah.
But the game right now has them as monstrosities. And I think a lot of DMs probably homebrew that and make them beasts or something like that.
Yeah, I think they should be a beast as well.
Yeah.
They don't really have any crazy supernatural abilities that would make them different than other beasts. So I personally would view them that way.
Yeah, I mean, so it's what is it now in D&D? It's a CR3 creature, right? It doesn't have anything particularly onerous in its stat block that a DM wouldn't want a druid to change into one of them versus a bear.
Yeah.
Stat-wise, it's not all that different. It's got 2 melee attacks. It hits for 2d8 plus 5 slashing damage.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's not anything.
Dark vision.
Game.
It's going to give them dark vision, for a little bit, which is fine. 60 foot dark vision, right? Do you think that in the game, DM Evanson, as a dungeon master, the players should be able to use animal handling or be able to tame them in some way as part of storyline? especially considering their monstrosity. If you homebrew and say they're a beast, would you allow an animal handling roll, or allow them to tame, or find an egg and try to raise a cute young one? Because honestly, when they're little, the owlbears are cute, and they have all these cute little mascots. They got the big eyes and the tiny little paws and the tiny little claws. They're so cute.
I think everyone finds them cute, especially when they're smaller. I find most people, even in Baldur's Gate 3, once they see the baby one, they usually let it live. I personally think if it's young enough, you could definitely have a better chance at that. I think once they're more feral, it would be a lot harder to, because they're out in the wild and probably not tameable.
And I think that's part of why I lean towards this should be a beast.
Yeah.
Whereas,
well,
the reasons I think they really should be a beast is that factor that, you can raise them from an egg, and I think they actually have a neutral alignment, and you could tame it theoretically. Whereas we talked a little bit last week when we talked about dragons, and if you found a dragon egg and it was an evil dragon, could you tame it? Nature versus nurture here. So
it's
again,
a big argument. Yeah,
right. It's can I tame a black dragon to not be evil? Whereas an owlbear is not inherently evil. So why couldn't you tame it?
Yeah, I like that. I like the way Baldur's Gate 3, the video game, did handle it, in a sense that in that part of the adventure, they tell you, there's a rabid owlbear. It's affected by rabies. It has a disease. And, it's not putting it as it's a good creature, or just a Bambi type of creature. So you have to kill the owlbear. And then, look, the baby's alone. The mother got sick. Now we have to help the baby out. And then you take the baby owlbear and, you raise them on your camp with the dog Scratch and stuff like that. I thought that was a good way to handle it. But back in the day, even in America, Native Americans during American Revolution, if there were bears walking around the woods, you might have a problem. If you go, even nowadays, if you go camping and you have the smell of food on you, and you have no protection, you could be in danger. A regular human against a bear, a brown bear has a big problem. So I guess an adventure would have a big problem too.
That is one thing I like, how it has the benefits of better hearing, because it's a half owl, where, or I should say better sight, because all these black bears bears in real life have terrible sight
vision.
Yeah, so everything smell and hearing.
Right.
So it really has the best of both worlds, which is great.
The other thing that's interesting is that in 5th edition's monster manual, they put the primeval owlbear, which is a much higher level. It's a CR7 owlbear now. That thing's mean. It's got.
I was going to say, so I feel like in 5e or 5.5, they now added 3 levels, 2 or 3 levels of every monster. So you have a hatchling dragon, a wormling, and then you'll have like a regular dragon, and then you have an ancient dragon. So you can introduce, same thing with vampires. Correct me if I'm wrong, DM Evanson. There's a bunch of vampires. There's spawn, thrall, and then like a full vampire. So your characters can encounter them at all levels.
Yeah.
Yep. They don't have. I mean, spawns are just basically serving to the vampire that made them, but more or less. But I do like the different variations that they add in, because I think they should have that anyway. Gives more choice for beasts.
Yeah. So the real question is, if you're the wizard making this thing and you want to make this terrifying monster, why didn't you give it wings? Why didn't you let it fly? Think how scary that would be.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad it doesn't fly. Yeah, it makes it more justifiable to allow druids to take it.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing because of the size, the weight, that was kind of the main reason, I guess, that they didn't give it flight. But that would be terrifying. If someone made one with flies, that would be terrifying.
I would like to see the owlbear. Let me take a step back. We pull up the owlbear statistics. The monster card from D&D Beyond, the monster manual, an owlbear, large monstrosity, unaligned, and has an armor class of 13, a +1 initiative, average of 59 hit points. talking about the speed, it has a regular speed of 40, so it can usually outrun. Can usually outrun you, and it has
The climb of 40.
Did you have a different one?
Oh, I have the higher level one to show. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the base Owlbear. This is going to be the lowest CR, right? So it has a base speed of 40, so it's going to be able to outrun most adventurers. We're sitting at 30, 35. Has a climb of 40, which means if you run up a tree, it can climb up it, or it has a strength of 20, so it could also maybe knock that tree over.
Yeah.
I would like to see an owlbear with a fly speed of 5 or 10, where you can open a cliff, we're safe, and then it's like, okay, it flies up 10 feet, and you're like 30 feet up. You're like, okay, you go. It flies up 10 feet. It flies up 10 feet, like just moving very slowly.
In first edition, there was stats in the Dragon article for a winged owlbear.
Yeah.
And it was the 8-foot tall owlbear with a 20-foot wingspan.
Wow.
And its fly speed was, let's see, 12 is a 60. So it had a fly speed of 90.
Wow.
Well, that's fast, though. I mean, that's
yeah, I'm saying they did not make it nice. They made it mean.
That's a scary owlbear. Going over the base owlbear, the lower level one, strength 20, dex 12, con 17, intelligence 3, wisdom 12, charisma 7, perception plus 5 with a passive of 15, 60-foot dark vision range, CR 3, multi attack, 2 rend attacks, so 2 attacks, plus 7 to hit, 5-foot reach, 14 average damage of slashing. And they give a little bit of stuff here about what might be in its den. Occupants of previous contents like bandits, wolves, or dragons. Maybe they ate. Heaps of regurgitated pellets studded with coins and other treasure. They don't collect treasure, but they might eat somebody who has coins. A nest of owlbear eggs.
It's interesting that they keep to regurgitate like an owl.
Yeah.
Regurgitated pellets.
Like they spit up pellets like owls do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Okay.
So
and we're going to pull this down, and the professor has prepared for us the primeval owlbear. So why don't you go over those statistics? That's a CR.
Sure, it's a CR7 now. Huge monstrosity, no alignment. AC 16, initiative plus 5, 126 hit points.
Yeah.
Here's what you asked for, Roy.
Oh, I didn't realize
climb,
that. Wow.
40-foot movement, 5-foot fly.
Maybe subconsciously I knew that somewhere. Maybe I read that. I didn't realize.
Strength bumps up to a 22, dex 14, con 19, intelligence 8, wisdom 15, charisma 7. Perception now goes up to plus 8. Dark vision goes out to 120 feet, and passive perception of 18. But it's a little more wizard's construct. Magic resistance. It has advantage on saves against all spells and magic effects. It's got a few more attack options. It has the multi-attack to make 2 ravage attacks that are now plus 9 to hit and do an average of 15 damage, 2d8 plus 6. But if a huge or smaller creature is the target, and the owlbear moves 20 feet towards it in a charge, the target takes an extra 2d8 damage and is automatically knocked prone.
That's nice.
Wow.
So it does like a bear's rush.
Yeah.
And then it has a screech attack that recharges on a 5 or a 6 with a DC 15 con save, and each creature in a 30-foot emanation takes 68 thunder damage and gains the incapacitated condition until the end of its turn. And on a successful save, you take half damage.
It's nice.
Wow. DM Edmonton, what do you think about that CR7?
That's great. I mean, that's really challenging early on. Being incapacitated is scary. It's a pretty high DC for con save. The magic resistance is great. And charging something smaller and getting that extra 2d8 damage is, it's potentially 4d8 damage right there. That's a lot. And being knocked prone.
Yeah, that's a 24 point hit on average on its one attack, and then it's going to follow up with the second attack. So, I mean, if it hits you twice, it's doing 40 points of damage.
Yeah.
What do you think of a primeval owlbear versus a medium-sized dragon?
Oh, dragon's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, the dragon's a whole, I think, medium. Even a small dragon's probably higher than CR7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Might have to have a battle royale one night.
there we go.
I do like the Dragon magazine, which I believe the issue came out in '95. Has a lot of like interesting facts. Like it has more bones in its neck. Has like double the amount humans does. It has like 14 extra bones. They give like cool like anatomy stuff that like you just don't see.
I have that up. I have that up in front of me. So, common sight in owlbear infested areas is claws on the trees. Because of their great size and weight, they're not great tree climbers, but they might be able to knock the tree over. Although in the current edition, they did give them climb, so that's not really.
Which, yeah, I think they should, because bears are great climbers.
Yeah. They talk about it is carnivorous, except they are well adapted for honey gathering. Their thick coat of fur and feathers protects them from bee stings, and they retain the long tongue of a bear, perfect for lapping up the sticky substance. Like an owl, they have a double range of dark vision. They call it infravision, and 4 times the range of hearing, which I guess would be kind of reflected in the passive perceptions and the perceptions.
Yeah.
In the original story, they could see invisible, or they would be perceptive enough to see the invisible creatures, although a silent spell would nullify this effect because they wouldn't be able to hear as well. Talking about the owl's hearing. They also talk about the owlbear can rotate its neck 270 degrees. That's more like story related. So if you're a dungeon master and you can kind of tell the story, like he turns his neck almost looking behind him and sees you, I think that would be creepy, even though there's really no game statistics, right?
Yeah.
As a storytelling device.
It's a good way to paint a picture and make it a little more terrifying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about variants, right?
Yep.
So they talk about there being the Arctic owlbear, which would have white fur and feathers, like kind of a polar bear mix.
Good swimmers.
And that would be immune to cold. But they would also be strong swimmers because of the polar bear aspect. So, they like talk about how even though it's a monstrosity, it evolved with the environment, which again pushes you back towards beast.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And they have the wing, and the Dragon magazine had the winged owlbear, which I guess is kind of what when they added the we talked about that earlier. They added that extra fly speed.
Yeah.
DM Evanson, would as a dungeon master, would you add anything to the owlbear to challenge your players or make it more interesting, such as the ability maybe to see invisible or like a tremor sense on certain ones, or what else would you do to the owlbear, or just kind of play it as is?
I'd probably give it a better sense of smell, so maybe it could see invisibility. Not really see invisibility, but I mean it's pretty good the way it is. I mean, if you're throwing a CR
away from a lot of creatures in 5.5, Dave, am I wrong, or did a lot more creatures have advantage to perception checks of certain types?
Yeah, I believe they did. I believe they stepped away from that to streamline things. They used to, I believe, have like better perception if it was hearing versus smelling, or seeing and versus hearing, and yada yada. But
something DMs can add back in if they want.
Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on where you are in the world, I guess, to make it make sense.
Do you think that was because of a rules creep where all of a sudden every single monster is immune to poison, or advantage to poison saves, or now every single monster has advantage on perception checks that regard smell? It just becomes too much, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter then at that point if every single creature has advantage on this check. Then it kind of becomes,
but I don't think it was that common. Like a bloodhound should have advantage on scent checks. That's what it was bred for. If you're a rogue trying to sneak into your enemy's lair and they have bloodhounds, you can be as quiet as you want, but you better not be downwind.
Yeah.
So some things like that I think still belong in the game.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to make it easier for people to get involved without actually having to know these tropes of real life stuff or wind and all that. And I get that they want to make it for new players just to be able to get in and not be overloaded with information. But if you want to elevate your game, I feel like going out, reading these old magazines, researching how they would act in their environment is only going to be a boon to the way you run the game.
Yep, I agree.
Sounds good. So that was our Ecology of the Owlbear. a little bit of background, how it was created, some of the stats for the different ones, and how to use it in your game. So please follow us for our future ecology videos coming soon. Any parting thoughts, Professor?
No, I mean, it's such a classic creature. I think it's a great example of early Dungeons and Dragons where they just did some weird stuff, but then they kind of kept it grounded in reality a little bit. So I think it's just a great classic monster.
Yeah.
Or beast.
Yeah. DM Evanson?
Let it crit on 18 plus.
I like that. I like that. That's a good one.
You roll enough crits, Dave.
Yeah. DM Evanson's crits and his recharge rolls are a little bit unfair. I don't know what happens behind that screen, but all right. So thanks once again for joining us for the Ecology of the Owlbear. Join us for our Ecology series every Thursday. Hopefully, we'll try to get these out to you. Coming soon, Mimic, Beholder, and all these other cool monsters. So have a great night.
Good night, everybody.